Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Oliver and Barbara Johnson, 65 and 61 years old respectively, were having a calm evening at home when Barbara, in a casual tone, posed an unusual question to Oliver. "What would you think if I had an affair?" Without hesitation, Oliver replied, "I wouldn't like it." Although such a question might seem unexpected in most marriages, for the Johnsons, it wasn't entirely out of the ordinary. After 43 years together, their conversations often touched on topics that might surprise others. Barbara, still turning heads with her confident and attractive appearance in her early 60s, worked as a college professor. Barbara taught various philosophy courses, though she was particularly known for her course on human sexuality, which filled up quickly each semester. The couple had a more open dialogue about sexuality than many other couples. They often discussed their desires, fantasies, and needs with a frankness that was rare in most relationships. Yet Barbara's question still caught Oliver off guard. She added, "And what if it was with Ben Affleck? After all, we're talking about a celebrity." After 43 years of marriage, Oliver had learned not to be too surprised. He played along, answering, "Well, if it's Ben Affleck, I suppose I wouldn't mind." Barbara clapped her hands gleefully and exclaimed, "Wonderful!" This sudden enthusiasm took Oliver aback. "What?" he asked, now with a more cautious tone. Barbara laughed, reassuring him. "Don't worry, dear. I've never met Ben Affleck and wouldn't even know where to start. But that brings me to my next question." At this point, Oliver began to feel uneasy, sensing that the conversation was heading into tricky territory. Barbara continued, "If I really did have an affair with Ben Affleck, how do you think you would actually feel? Let's be serious. People always joke about the celebrity exception, but I want to know your honest reaction." Relaxing a bit, thinking she was likely gathering material for her human sexuality course, Oliver calmed down. "Honestly, Barbara, I'd need to think about it. I'm not sure how I'd feel." Barbara smiled, clearly willing to give him time. "All right, dear. Take your time. I'll go make some coffee." Oliver realized this was her subtle way of signaling that she expected a thoughtful answer. Despite his internal discomfort, he began to seriously contemplate the question. Of course, if she slept with Ben Affleck, he would be angry and upset. But was a hypothetical fling with a celebrity worth ending their 43-year marriage? Barbara had been an amazing wife, mother, and partner throughout their life together. When Barbara returned, she had that familiar look of a teacher, signaling it was time for an answer. She sat down and looked at him expectantly. "Barbara, honestly, I would feel hurt and betrayed, especially if you kept it a secret. Even if I knew in advance, it would still be painful." Barbara nodded, absorbing his words. "I understand, but would that be enough to destroy our marriage?" she asked more seriously this time. Oliver thought carefully before answering, "No, I don't think it would destroy our marriage, but it would definitely bring a lot of pain." She seemed to take in his words, though her posture indicated that she wanted to ask one more question. "And what if it wasn't Ben Affleck, but Charlie Miller from my department at the college?" Without thinking, Oliver joked, "Well, in that case, I'd shoot both of you and happily spend the rest of my life in prison." Most people might have expected Barbara to feel uncomfortable with such a response, but Oliver knew his wife better. She remained as calm as ever. "I understand, dear, but don't worry. I won't do anything with Charlie that I wouldn't do with Ben. And now you might be thinking, oh no, Oliver is in danger. But trust me, you have nothing to worry about. I've been navigating the ups and downs of marriage for quite some time now, and I'd like to think I've become somewhat of an expert. Honestly, it's not as complicated as many people believe. Sure, there are a few key points, but it boils down to this. With Ben, I could offer you an extraordinary level of intimacy, something most women never experience. Although, if the rumors are true, many have already had the chance to try it." Barbara, always an attentive listener, nodded in agreement, resting her chin on her hand. "But when it comes to Charlie Miller, I've seen how he acts around you at every gathering. Do you remember that conversation we had a while back about him, you, and that mistletoe situation? It's been clear for a long time that he's trying to get you into bed. He just can't keep his eyes off your chest, like a moth drawn to a flame. He's been divorced twice already. Ever wondered why? Now here's what you don't know. My own thoughts about him. Considering you continue to interact with him, I'm starting to wonder if you're trying to humiliate me in front of everyone we know. Barbara tried to interrupt me, but I stopped her with a raised hand, indicating it wasn't time for that yet. Seriously, Barbara, do you honestly believe that scumbag would keep personal matters private? He'd probably spill every detail online for everyone to see. Once I started speaking, I couldn't stop. If you slept with Charlie Miller, it would be the ultimate betrayal. I might not go as far as putting a bullet in your head, but our marriage would definitely be over. I paused for a moment to catch my breath. Thanks for the advice, I added sarcastically. Always so helpful. Barbara stood up, gently patted my arm, and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. I'm going to bed. Are you coming soon? Soon, yes, I replied. I just need to finish this chapter. She gave me a curious look. What's been keeping you so engrossed these past few days? It's this book. The chapter I'm reading explains why some traders preferred mules over oxen for transporting wagons. I couldn't help but show a little excitement. Barbara, less enthused, forced a polite smile. Now I understand why you're so fascinated. Good night, dear. I caught a slight eye roll as she left the room. Not everyone shares a love for the fine art of historical narrative. However, I wasn't particularly bothered. But I mentally chastised myself for getting drawn into a conversation I should have avoided. Still, I knew it wasn't over. I had learned to read Barbara well over the years. It reminded me of the time we went on a short vacation, and I told her to pack just one suitcase. When it was time to leave, Barbara, with our 2 kids in tow, showed up with a massive antique Saratoga trunk, inherited from her grandmother, grinning like the Cheshire Cat as they all tried to fit it into our SUV. I swear the car sagged under its weight. My punishment for not being more specific in my instructions? I spent the whole trip with my legs pressed up against a small travel bag. The next day, we went about our usual business. That night, after I cooked dinner, we returned to our usual routine, sitting side by side in our cozy chairs, absorbed in our books. It might seem dull to some, but for us, it was a special, quiet togetherness. Even when the kids were little, they knew not to disturb us during reading time. And just as I had concluded that mules were probably the better choice, Barbara placed her book on my lap. Dear, I want to revisit our conversation from yesterday, she said. I wasn't surprised. As I mentioned earlier, I knew it wouldn't end just like that. How would you react if I told you I wanted to have an affair with a woman, like, say, Tracy Wilson? I snapped my book shut. Mules and oxen would have to wait. Barbara had my full attention. So you're telling me this directly? No secret affairs behind my back? Exactly, she replied, carefully watching my reaction. You'd know everything in advance. Who knows? Maybe you'd even take part in it. I eagerly awaited the answer, and it was yes. Yes. Looking back, I should have seen the trap I was walking into, but clearly you've never met Tracy. My thoughts drifted into somewhat indecent fantasies, imagining the possibility of a threesome with her and my wife. Wait, don't rush to judge me, I'm just being honest. After all, I'm a man. Okay, I admit it. Realistically, such a situation would probably end with me having a heart attack, but still. Really, Oliver? Something like what happened with Ben and Charlie, right? This time I didn't need as much time to think as I did last night. I wasn't entirely sure how upset I would be, but I felt my emotions would depend on the role I played in this situation. My response was tinged with a hint of pride and a barely noticeable hope. She rolled her eyes even more dramatically than she had the night before. Message received. So your idea of loyalty is more about how threatened you feel by my actions, rather than any real moral compass, right? She shot back. Ouch. That hit hard. I fell silent, deciding it was better not to respond. I had already dug myself a deep enough hole. She sat there, staring at me, tapping her foot against the chair, waiting for me to say something. It was time to face the reality of the situation. Barbara, why are you so insistent on having an affair with that creep Miller? I asked. Look, she began. "Charlie is a snake, sure, but not for the reasons you imagine." It took me a moment to understand what she meant. I know. You probably would have figured it out quicker, but my mind was elsewhere. I sat there, stunned, silent. Eventually, she decided to show a bit of mercy and explain further. "Darling, this won't be some passionate affair. It's part of my research on human sexuality. I think it will give me valuable insights." My mouth went dry and I felt lightheaded. "Come on, dear. We both know your problem isn't morality. It's your fragile male ego," she continued. "And by the way, Charlie is no more a threat to us than Ben or Tracy. This is going to happen, whether you like it or not. Next weekend, I'm going with Charlie, from Friday to Sunday, and I'll be back Sunday evening. No harm done. It won't change anything between us." She spoke to me as if I were some disobedient child. "Thomas, you're not going to leave me over this. It's just one weekend for research, and then everything will go back to normal. I might even treat you to your favorite analogy about mules and oxen when I get back." "Barbara, I don't own you, and I can't stop you. But if you go through with this, it will be a turning point. Whatever happens, it will leave a mark on you, on us." "You're right. I wouldn't point a gun at you both, but our marriage? I'm not so sure about that." I tried to keep my voice calm. "Think about how this will look to your colleagues." I immediately regretted saying that. I realized most of her colleagues had probably already sampled this man. "Barbara," I continued, "remember the story I once told you about the glamorous woman at the fancy party? She was talking to a charming stranger and he asked her, 'Madam, if I offered you $1,000,000, would you sleep with me?' The woman, surprised, thought it over and eventually replied, 'Yes, I think I would.' 'And what if I offered you $10?' he continued. Offended, she replied, 'No way! What do you take me for?' We had already solved the main issue, madam. Now it was just a matter of sorting out the minor details. I walked behind her, shouting, 'Barbara, listen, if you keep this up, sooner or later everyone, literally everyone, is going to find out who you really are.' I paused briefly before adding, 'That's all I'm going to say about it.' 'Do what you think is right,' I added, deciding not to bring up the topic again. From that moment on, I didn't raise the issue with her in conversation. Predictably, the tension at home remained for the rest of the week. Barbara's stubborn nature prevailed, and she clearly wasn't planning on returning to that conversation. "Well, dear, I'm heading over to Charlie's. Don't worry, we'll be fine," she tried to reassure me, though the tension was palpable. "And what will you be up to while I'm gone? Hopefully something enjoyable?" "Maybe you'll head down to the basement and tinker with your model trains," Barbara teased, quickly kissing me on the cheek before heading out the door. As it closed behind her, I called out with a smile, "Don't worry about me.